Good evening. I'd like to call to order the January 10th, 2013 meeting of the Edina Energy and Environment Commission. Tonight is our second annual televised meeting, and because we have the opportunity to communicate visually with the Dyna residents, we've designed this meeting to be an annual report to the city on the status of our energy and environment. We've had some major accomplishments in 2012, including being the first city in the Midwest to establish an energy financing program known as PACE, Property Assessment Clean Energy, for commercial properties in the state, or in the city, and we received a state award recognizing our leadership in that area. We also were recognized along with about 35 other cities for leadership, again, at the state award for the Green Step City program, which was recognized as the Partnership of the Year. We have a new recycling contract that looks like it is very successful in increasing the amount of recycling that Edina residents are doing. We also have, and you'll hear about solar panels that are on the city roof providing clean energy to at least offset part of the energy use of the city hall. And you'll hear about an energy efficiency project that we did over the past year for all Edina buildings. And we've had some very successful community dialogue and outreach and some other activities that we'll be reporting on. So for the first 30 minutes tonight, we'll be basically hearing from the accomplishments of the different aspects of our own commission: air, water, recycling and waste, education and outreach, student activities, green purchasing, and energy. And for the last 75 minutes of this meeting, we will highlight some of the accomplishments that we achieved through the city, and it's basically citywide and community-wide, including some reports on the energy use and how to track energy use in the city's buildings. We're part of a handful of cities that are participating in what's called a Regional Indicators Project that will tell us how we are doing on citywide indicators, including the amount of energy, water, vehicle miles traveled, and waste that we are generating as a community and how that affects our greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, we're one of the first Green Step City cities that joined the Green Step City program that I mentioned earlier, received a state award, and we'll be talking about how we can continue our leadership in that area moving forward. So first, with a couple of preliminaries, Rebecca, would you take the roll call, please?
Commissioner Brandt, Commissioner Gubert, Commissioner Hare.
I'm here.
Commissioner Kosich.
Present.
Commissioner Latham.
Present.
Commissioner Rizzer.
Present.
Commissioner Rudnicki. Commissioner Sokol.
Present.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Zarin.
Present.
And Chair Zerks.
Here. And next, we'd like to do approval of the meeting agenda. If everybody had a copy of that, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Agenda is approved. And then we have the consent agenda, which includes the meeting minutes both for our last meeting and our November meeting, as well as the attendance report, roster, and work group list and minutes. So if there are any comments first on any aspect
Chair
of
Zerks, I have some changes for the December minutes. Why don't I do as last month and redline them, and then we'll take them up next month?
Is that acceptable to the, okay. Why don't we do that? So can I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended for November, and then the attendance report, roster, and work group list?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the consent agenda as amended is approved. And next, there's the opportunity for community comment. Are there any members or present here of the public who'd like to comment at this time? And hearing none, we'll move on to our next aspect of what we're hoping to do today is to report on some of the accomplishments that we have had over the past year and areas where we're hoping to focus on and reach some accomplishments in the upcoming year, starting first with the Air and Water Quality Working Group, which will be Julie Risser.
All right. Thank you, Chair Zerks.
Last year, we had Susan Tucker step down, and she was heading up the Water Quality Working Group. I was heading up the Air Quality Working Group, and now both of these groups have been merged together. And so if there's any confusion out there in the community, I think that's a really good thing for people to know. And air and water quality really do go together in a very critical kind of way. A lot of the things that influence the air also end up influencing the water, and so this is a logical thing to have happen. In 2012, we moved forward on some small projects. One was no idling signs, and we got one up at Concord and also at Creek Valley, encouraging people not to idle their engines as they were picking up and dropping off children, and that is something that we would like to continue to work on. A lot of times you do see parents in their cars with engines idling for quite a bit of time, and you've got kids playing nearby. So that's something that we did look into and we did address. We were also active in terms of going over documents, things that the city really needed to move forward on, and we worked closely with Ross Bintner on that. The Wellhead Protection Plan was a plan and is a plan that we have been reading and encouraging members to bring comments to the table, concerns that they have. One of the things that we noticed for people who are not familiar with these documents, there is a high degree of difficulty sometimes in terms of understanding what's in them. And the DNR does keep a record of bodies of water and the names that they have in municipalities. There are 11 in Edina that do have names, but those are not with the DNR. Some of them do not have names. The Nancy Lakes, for example, the community does refer to them as the Nancy Lakes, but that's not on the DNR's radar. And so one thing that we'd like to do in 2013 is really encourage people to get to know the lakes and to get those names on the DNR's list so that documents can be better understood. The other thing is that we'll continue to work on hearing drafts and offering comments on them. The Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan is something that's going to be a really big, important plan to pay attention to. And I would like to encourage all viewers who are watching, if you're interested in any of these documents, they are available on the city website. And so you can track and you can see where we are, what the drafts are. And it really is important for people to read and to become engaged in that process.
Thank you, Commissioner Visser. And our next update is the Recycling and Solid Waste Working Group, and Commissioner Latham will be giving that update.
Thank you, Chair Sirks. First of all, I would like to thank the Recycling and Solid Waste Working Group for all their efforts this past year. That includes two commissioners, Commissioner Erin and Commissioner Rudnicki, who unfortunately is not here tonight. They both provided very valuable insights and were most helpful in a successful program this year. Also, we had two residents on that committee, Melissa Seeley and Michelle Horan, and I would like to thank them also for all their efforts this past year. If anyone would like to join the Recycling and Solid Waste Working Group or any of our other working groups, which includes the Energy Working Group, the Education Working Group, and the Air and Water Working Group, please call City Hall at 952-927-8861. That's 927-8861. We'd love to have you on one of our working groups. So the biggest news this year in the recycling and solid waste was the City of Edina switched to single-sort recycling, and this began in October 2012. You can see on the slide the materials that are now recyclable, and we have some new things there. Formerly, only plastics number 1 and 2 were recycled. Now 3 through 7s are recyclable, and this includes yogurt cups, cottage cheese or margarine containers, disposable cups, bowls, clear packaging from toys and electronics, as well as milk cartons, juice boxes, soup, broth, and wine cartons. What is not recyclable still are styrofoam, plastic wrap, microwavable food trays, mirrors, containers that held hazardous products, and big plastics such as children's toys. Now, the result of this is we have a considerable increase in recycling. The graph that is up shows what was recycled in the previous year, 2011. You can see it's mostly newsprint, or at least half of it, and probably a quarter glass. Now, if we can have the next slide, we collected 92 additional tons of recyclable commodities in the fourth quarter of 2012. And you can see from the graph that the fourth quarter of 2011 was trending down. Now with single sort and the new commodities, we've got that in an upward direction again. We'll take a look at the next slide. And you can see by commodity that newspaper has jumped quite a bit, as has glass. The plastic remains similar, even though we're collecting more kinds of plastic. Plastic is very lightweight, and so it does not jump a whole lot there. One thing that was odd that we cannot quite explain yet is that corrugated box board and so forth went down, and it's down 14 tons. That started going down last May, and Allied has not got a good handle yet on why that's going down. It might just be the recession that people are purchasing less. Organics are recyclable not through the recycling program, but through our solid waste haulers. If you have things like food soiled paper and plates and napkins, Kleenex, those sorts of things, they can be recycled, but the only place you can do that is through Verkant Disposal, Inc. And he picks up organics, co-collects that with yard waste 12 months out of the year, with the exception of December 1 through April 1, where it is every other week. One thing I want to advise residents that you must be careful to store your wheeled carts out of view of the front of the house. Council has been getting some complaints on that. Keep them in your garage or in the backyard. This is per City Code 705. Now, most people are very happy about the new carts, but some people have a problem with the size. Understand that you can either upgrade your size or downgrade the size as needed simply by calling the City Recycling Coordinator. They come in three sizes, 32, 64, and 90 gallons. You can get that changed. And if you want, if the 90 gallon isn't enough and you want two 64 gallons, you can have that as well. The only problem we experienced with overflow comes during holiday collection when people have a lot of boxes and so forth. If you can't fit everything in your bin, what I did was I worked with a neighbor who hadn't filled theirs, and with their permission, you just top off your neighbor's wheeled cart. Some people tried to set out their green 18-gallon bins, and an Allied will not pick them up anymore. So don't use that for your overflow. Try to work with your neighbor. Some people have got concerns about every other week collection. They would like it every week. Unfortunately, we did not get any bids for every week collection, and we have a 7-year contract. So for the most part, it's going to be permanent. The next advantage, or the next thing that we implemented was the park recycling bins. 25 new bins were added to our parks. Those were quite successful, and we're going to be adding 75 more at the rate of 25 each year. The only problem we've experienced is at Bredesen Park, where people have been putting non-recyclables in those containers, and in particular pet waste. If you put your bag of pet waste in a recycling container, all the recyclables will be thrown in the trash. So we're going to request that no pet waste labels be put on these recycling bins so that people are sure not to do that. Municipal recycling, organic recycling was implemented at both City Hall and Edinburgh this year and will be implemented at all other locations this coming year. The last new thing that we did this year was we have trash collection reporting. We're the first city in the state to do that. Nearly all of our haulers have turned in their reports for 2012. That's going to be really important going forward, because as we make changes to recycling in the city, we will be able to tell whether that has been successful or not by virtue of how much trash is reduced. And one of the things that we'll be using that on is commercial recycling. Commissioner Zarin will be heading up a task force to increase commercial recycling, and these reports will be able to tell us about our success on that. So I will turn over the program on recycling to Commissioner Zarin to talk about this program.
Thank you, Commissioner Plankton-Latham. Edina City is fully involved with the residential recycling. However, city is not involved with business recycling. Eecs Solid Waste Group, with the collaboration of the local environmental group Edina Go Green, have been looking and assessing what % of businesses and what materials businesses are recycling in Edina. The goal is to reduce amount of waste in the landfills and bring sustainable environmental practices to businesses in Edina, which has benefit to businesses, residents, city, and environment. Task force has been formed with, I'm going to lead that task force with the collaboration of Edina Chamber of Commerce, Eecs, City of Edina, volunteers, a couple of business representatives, and Hennepin County. Edina is going to be the first city that Hennepin County is going to use as a pilot run to encourage, promote, and educate businesses to start and or reevaluate their recycling practices. And as I'm speaking, unfortunately, those are the facts about recycling, and they are amazing because some people say, well, recycling, it's not really going to affect that much or doesn't have that much benefit, but it does matter. Recycling papers, metals, plastics, as well as other items. So any residents and businesses would like to be part of the Edina Business Recycling Task Force, please contact Edina Chamber of Commerce President Lori Severson, lori@edina.org, and refer to EBR. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very great report. Lots of going on in the recycling solid waste area. Our next update will be the Education and Outreach Work Group with Commissioner Thompson.
Hi, good evening, and thanks for looking in on our report for the year. We really are here to invite all of you out there in the listening audience to participate in these actions, either at home or in your faith community, in your school, in your neighborhood. We really need your participation. Education and outreach. Our mission is to create public awareness and engage residents, schools, churches, businesses, and civic organizations to take action to conserve energy and increase energy efficiency, to increase recycling and preserve and enhance the environment. The members of our working group in 2012 were Bob Grubrud and myself, Paul Thompson, co-chairs, Commissioner Sarah Zarin, Laura Eaton, John Howard, and Todd Wilmert. Currently, we have 4 active members. Our major accomplishments in 2012, in April 19th at the Edina High School, we did an Edina Dialogue event in partnership with the Edina Energy, or the Edina Community Foundation. We brought in Dr. John Foley from the University of Minnesota, and the Institute on the Environment to talk about the environment and its connection with the economy, food supply, and we're looking both from global to local issues. It was well attended with 250 attendees, and as you can see from the photograph, we tried to engage participants in having a dialogue about the things that are important to them in the local and in the global scene. Our other major event of the year was the Solar Works in Edina in partnership with CERTS, the Clean Energy Resource Teams. It was held in this room November 15th. We had 75 people here and had a very dynamic discussion about what businesses and residents in Edina are doing. They shared their solar experiences, and you can see a garage from Katie Oberly and Eric Cooperstein. They covered the entire south side of their garage with, I think, 45 kilowatts of solar power. And he came in and gave a very interesting discussion, as did Chuck Prentice, and also from Rick, last name? Rick Murphy, thank you. Rick Murphy from Grandview Tire and Auto, which has done a tremendous, he was part of the first PACE program, which you heard about earlier. And we'll be doing more of these. The other accomplishment is that we've started the Edina Interfaith Environmental Coalition. It engages Edina faith communities in energy efficiency and environmental stewardship through education and action. We have monthly meetings where congregations share best practices, encourage action and expansion to other congregations. And right now we have participants at Edina Community Lutheran, Good Samaritan Methodist, Shepherd of the Hills Lutheran, St. Patrick's Catholic Church, and the newly to Edina, the SV Hindu Temple. We've been working with a nonprofit organization, Interchange, which does consultations, and they've been working at 2 or 3 of the Edina congregations on identifying ways to save energy and making recommendations. This is a no-cost option for congregations. And we've also been working with the Center for Energy and Environment. They have a program specifically aimed at the resident or the congregants that go to congregations. In 2013, we have 2 things coming up that we're planning now. We're going to do a EEC film series beginning in March at the Edina Public Library. We don't know which one yet, but it'll be at one of them. The first film is Carbon Nation, and the details you'll be able to find at the EEC webpage. And the second one is our second annual Earth Day celebration. We're calling it What's Up with the Weather? It's raining in January. A presentation and discussion by either Paul Douglas or Mark Seeley on Minnesota weather and how it impacts Edina and Minnesota and what's happening with climate. There'll be a panel discussion afterwards, and then we'll be focusing again on what Edina citizens are doing and how they can become part of the solution. It'll be on April 17th, 18th, or 19th. Check the website. So join our working group. We're a happy bunch, and we're having a good time working together. We meet on the first Tuesday of every month from 7 to 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Thompson. As part of our commission, too, we also have 2 student members from Edina High School, and they're going to talk about what is going on that involves them at the high school.
Project Earth is a club at Edina High School where Andrew and I attend. Project Earth is currently applying for a Green Partners grant. This grant will help install 2 hand dryers and 2 bathrooms for a total of $6,400. The club will pay for the hand dryers, but the school has agreed to install them. Project Earth has been working really hard on this, and they hope to have a lasting impact on the school to help it become more efficient.
Going off of what Ilana says, other things that we do at Project Earth, we have been working to install compost centers in the lunchroom. As you can tell, there's a lot of food waste that comes out of there, so recycling that and getting it into compost is a lot more efficient than throwing it in the trash. Other things they've been working on, we recently installed some water bottle fillers to encourage students to bring their Nalgene's to school, like mine, and fill them up there instead of using plastic water bottles that just go into landfills and create more waste.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Brandt and Commissioner Sokol. And our next update from Commissioner Kostic will talk about our purchasing task force and how that work has been going.
Thank you, Chair. Let me pull that down. Last year at this meeting, we talked about the green purchasing policy, and that was discussed with City Council in the February working group meeting. I think there were very limited changes that were made, and then it was approved by the City Council during one of their spring meetings. I do want to particularly note the very involved participation of the city staff in the development of the policy. We had met with a lot of people, and a lot of work was put into that to make sure it was a policy that the city could live with. The policy does call for an annual report by a task force leader to the city manager, the EEC, and the city council. That meeting has yet to be scheduled for 2013, but we look forward to it. And that's about the end of the purchasing committee report.
Thank you, Commissioner Kosik. And our last commission report is the Energy Working Group, or last I should say, but not least, from John, you want to take that one?
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Commissioner here, I should say. Sorry.
Thanks, Bill. The Energy Working Group's done a number of things this year, and we're looking forward to some more work coming up in 2013. But just to highlight, the Emerald Energy Program started out as, we called it PACE at the beginning of the year, and it's moved into the Emerald Energy Program, which Edina staff Ross Bittner has been working very diligently to help make that a more inclusive program, so we can bring in more than just PACE projects. We can recognize all kinds of energy projects in Edina. Just to highlight, Bill talked about the awards that Edina won this year. One he didn't mention was by a local group called the Environmental Initiative, which has a large environmental awards program every year, and Edina won for the Emerald Energy PACE program this year, and that was a real feather in our cap for that. So that was great. We've been working on the Green Step Cities program. This year we got moved into the one of the higher levels. I can't remember the number. I was at step 3, which there's only a couple of cities in the state that are at that level for energy efficiency. And we'll be working this year to keep that level and look at what it might take to move up to another level if the state puts the criteria out there. Recently, we've been, as a commission and as a working group, we made some recommendations around the Edina Golf Dome to try and make sure that the most efficient structure and facility gets built in that place. And we've been made a recommendation to the council to that effect, and I think we'll see, hopefully, the council choose the energy efficient choice on that building. Looking at our work plan that the City Council has given us for 2013, the Energy and Working Group will have some work to do. Expanding and promoting the Emerald Energy Program is probably our top initiative. We'll be working on that. We'll be working on some building energy efficiency audits and things like that, trying to leverage some state resources to give Edina additional tools to become more efficient. And finally, we'll continue our work on the Green Step Cities program. And I'd like to say one more thing, that this year we got city staff person in Ross Bittner halfway through the year, and he has just been a great resource to our working group and to this commission. And we congratulate the city on making a great choice there. So, thank you.
Well, 100% agreement on that from me, too. We're actually ahead of schedule, which never happens in our meetings, so this is a rare treat today. Our next couple of presentations are kind of following up on the energy theme, because we're going to talk a little bit about the city programs that involve putting solar panels on the roof and how much energy they have been producing at City Hall. And also that was part of a bigger effort to do some energy efficiency improvements in a number of the city buildings. So first we're going to hear from Trish Curtis, who's a consultant from McKinstry, who's going to describe what those projects were and how or basically what results we've seen to date.
Try and get back here for a second. Jump forward. There. Thank you for having us this evening. My name's Trish Curtis. I work for McKinstry, And this is my partner, Brent Schmidt, and he is a performance assurance specialist. So he is actually doing a lot of the performance measures and the M&V on this whole project. With us also is Edina resident, Bill Simons, and he's from 10K Solar. So he is the person behind the whole solar panels.
Great. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you. I thought I'd take you a little trip down memory lane first. An overview of the project that we started a little over a year ago. It's jumping ahead. There we go. We were looking at some building envelope improvements, solar improvements, water conservation, and interior lighting was part of all of this whole project. The total project cost was $701,098 with anticipated utility savings of roughly $54,021 and incentives totaling $284,750. And you say, wow, that's quite a number. And over $200,000 of that was for the solar alone. And that was through some grants that were made available through the state, some rebates, and Made in Minnesota rebate as well. So I commend you on your vision for that and being able to tap into those resources. And to see a project like this come in at a payback at 7.7 years is phenomenal. Just a couple of the milestones, again, to take you down memory lane this last year is we kicked off the project in October of 2011. We worked on the water conservation and got that substantially completed by the end of October of 2011. Building envelope, and this says FIM, it means Facility Improvement Measure. So sorry for the acronym. Building envelope was completed at the end of 2011 with interior lighting completed about a year ago. And then the solar panels were signed off and the majority of the work completed, substantially completed around April of 2012. So we're coming up on a year on that. So the year one M&V report is due May of 2013. So just a couple months down the road. Ross had asked us to come in and give you a quick update on how things are progressing and what we're seeing for verification on the savings anticipated. Excuse me, getting a little bit of a cold. A couple, again, to go through the measurement and verification process and how we assure that you get the savings that were anticipated for the financing of the project. We look at interior lighting, we look at the wattage of the fixtures and take measurements of those. The current savings, like I said, we're coming up right on the end of the year, is $30,932 with the end of year projection at $33,744. So I won't read through all of this, it'd take too much time, but you can review here where the current savings is and then what the projection is. The solar, we did have a couple little bumps in the road just with all the connectivity, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of those and what we've done to resolve those. And like I said, we've got our backup team, our quarterback here of Bill, so we're covered there. Water conservation was another one. Savings is coming in right as planned with the Guaranteed Energy Savings Project total savings at $50,289. That is, if you recall a few slides ago, we had an energy savings of about $54,000. We had to subtract, because of the Gulf Dome, the savings that was anticipated from the energy savings from that. So that's where you get the new number. Just to give you a brief overview on how we do our measurement and verification, these are a couple slides. They're kind of busy. You do have a copy of these so that you could review them, and if you have any questions or comments, we'll be certainly happy to entertain those. But for instance, up in the corner where it says Bramer Maintenance, that is pressurization tests or blower door tests, you might hear them referred to. That's how we do the measurement and verification on what the energy savings is for that particular strategy, and that's regarding the building envelope improvements, where we're sealing up cracks, doors, windows, sealing the bottoms of the doors, so on and so forth. Shower water fixture measurements and toilet water fixture measurements are all based on GPMs, gallons per minute, and how much has been saved. So that's how we come up with those numbers as well. The fixture power consumption, which is all based on the lighting, is wattage per fixture. So that's pretty simple math calculation, and that's how we come up with those savings as well. A bird's eye view, and this is the fabulous solar project. This is a total of 25 kW, well, it's 25 kW worth of solar panels on the top of City Hall here. Like I said, we had a couple challenges here, I'll be honest, and we were able to remedy those. One of the challenges that we had were getting the data to feed through the system for proper reporting. So that is, we were able to start tracking accurately in September, where we can see the accurate savings. So, and if you have questions on that, Bill can go a little bit further into that, but there's graphs showing day-to-day production on the solar panels. And it can show you totalized, it can show you at 5-minute interval data. It's really cool stuff. And it really brings in, and if you have the software available at the city to be able to publish this to the community and show them what you're doing. Here are a couple of those graphs that I'm referring to that talk about the energy savings or in the production from the solar panels. So the bottom graph there shows in the month of September what the production was. So kilowatt hours, it was looking at a peak of almost 100 kilowatt hours, 90 kilowatt hours in one day. So that's the type of information, the quantified information that you'll be able to share with the community. This is a little bit more on the building envelope improvements that I talked about. And that's the overhead doors, the door sweeps. There's some examples there of the inanimate objects here. Along the ceiling, the roof and walls, door sweeps again, and some of the window. Here's a couple of the tools that we use for the water conservation improvements. And that includes the flow measuring devices that actually quantify that savings. And here's a before and after example of the arena and the lighting project there. What a difference, huh? Some of the highlights that I guess I would like to point out on the solar project is that it's made in Minnesota, which is what you got, one of the rebates that you received. It's producing as anticipated. It's meeting the savings. We're excited about that for you guys. And what better to have an Edina spokesperson here in your company to be able to advocate what you as a commission are doing for your community. That's all I had.
Great, thanks. I think we have time if any of the commissioners have any questions you'd like to ask at this time. Commissioner Visser?
Can you go back to the graph that showed production in September?
Sure.
I'm just curious on the 12th, what caused that to drop so significantly?
There's a lot of things that can pull on that. I was not able to pull the data on that particular day. That could be cloud cover. Simply cloud cover, or a lot of moisture in the atmosphere too can also have an effect on the production that day. Bill, do you want to add? Okay. Yes.
Go to the graph of the lighting in Braemar.
Yes. Let me see if I can jump back there. Oh, yes.
There you go. So which one is before and after, and what changes did you make in the lighting?
Okay, the lights before were metal halides, correct? That's right. Brent? Okay. Metal halides are 1,000-watt metal halides. And the thing with metal halides is that at their half-life, they are actually drawing the same amount of energy that they're rated for, but their light output is less than 50%. So you're actually drawing over 1,000 watts with the ballast. It's like 1,080 watts, and you're still drawing that, even though you're only getting the light output of about 500. Mm-hmm. And then what was replaced were 6 lamp T8s, correct?
I believe so.
Yes, 6 lamp T8s, which are the tubular fluorescent lights that are wattage-wise 200.
I think they're 400 actually.
Okay, they're about 400 watts, and they have a reflector. So you get actually better light and better light quality for less than half of what you were getting under the metal halides.
Thank you.
The after slide is the one on the left?
Yes, where you see the. I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. They're on the right.
It's on the right. Right. That's the after, with the T8s, the long fluorescent bulbs with the reflecting top, because it looks darker.
Any other questions? Otherwise, thank you very much that was a very informative presentation. So we appreciate
Thanks
you
for
coming
having
out
us.
tonight.
I
And
commend
look
you.
forward to the report in April, I guess.
Absolutely.
May.
Congratulations. Thank you.
And our next presentation will be showing how our city staff engineer, Ross Bittner, is actually able to monitor Edina's building energy use going forward, which will tie in nicely with our next speaker's report on energy and other indicators. So, Ross, would you like to kind of give us a demonstration of the B3 benchmarking database in action?
Thank you, Chair. First, I'm going to describe the benchmark. This is a concept slide that kind of puts forth, why we do benchmarking in the first place. You imagine we have 1,000 buildings, and they're normally distributed or fairly normally distributed around about 150 kilobtu's per square foot. If any one of those buildings were to be rebuilt, today, same size, same usage, and to code, it would fall somewhere in that second quartile, where a little bit above average if it's coming to for energy efficiency, a little below average for energy use, and we target our maintenance activities and our retrofits based off of that to really find the parts of the system that are performing poorly, so that we can bring it back up to a modern day standard. Am I out of range? Oh heck, I might be moving. All right, I'll give the presentation from up here. So, is that backwards? There we go. So, through this presentation, I hope we can answer these following questions. How are we using that B3 or that building benchmarking system? How many buildings does the city have? What's the current energy use of those buildings? Do we have opportunities out there in that building stock for retrofit or for recommissioning activities? How have our previous energy retrofits or our previous activities to reduce energy use performed? And are we meeting our environmental goals? This is a slide that kind of describes the overall building stock in the city. I've color-coded it to change with the uses, but you'll note that just the top 3 buildings in the city per square footage make up more than half of the square footage of all the buildings we own. If you move through the top 9, you're already to 87% of the total square foot. Green here is direct public uses and parks and those type of buildings. The blue are the maintenance facilities. Our liquor stores are in the orange, public safety in the red, and City Hall, which has a little bit of a public safety use as well, in the purple. That's our general government function. So I'm going to take those top 9 buildings and kind of drill down into a little bit more depth so that we can start to see how much energy they're using. So of those 20 sites, we're looking at just the top 9 now. And the graph is meant to kind of visually represent their share of that top 87%. And they're listed from the top to the bottom in size. Our Public Works building, 160,000 square feet. While it's large, it was just recently recommissioned in 2010, and you can see that it has a benchmark ratio of 0.38 in our building benchmarking system. So compared to its peers, other public works and garage type facilities with some office use, it's using only about 40% of the average when it's compared to other buildings in Minnesota. Similarly, Braemar Arena, just below it, that one's, fighting at its weight. It's about a 1.02, while it has a lot more energy intense use when you look at that, 1,000 BTUs per square foot at 177. That is about average for a facility that's making cooling ice and heating the same space for the fans watching hockey. You can start to see some opportunities here, but I'll circle back to the opportunities as well. We use the system to really drill down and see, of our building stock, which ones are doing well, and then which ones we should start to spend our effort on and really, try to reduce that use slowly but surely. Another one of the better performers is the public safety training facility. You'll note that one is also about 60% or 0.6 benchmark ratio. Another one of the newer facilities, surprise, surprise. So we have, we're trying to go through and provide a check for our guaranteed energy savings program. We had that $50,000 energy efficiency retrofit. We should start seeing some of the gains for solar when it's online in the summer and the sun's shining bright. But we can also read out both cost and total carbon use for the facilities. The comprehensive plan has some aggressive goals that came out of state legislation in 2007. 15% reduction by 2015, 30% reduction of carbon emissions by 2025. How are we trending when it comes to our environmental goals? We're still only a few years into this. I should take some time here to thank our friends at the state and the intern, Sarah Steinman, who did a lot of the initial data entry, brought us back up to speed and put a lot of historic data into this system. And now the city's upkeeping it. So every time utility bills come in, it gets put in there, and we can actually drill down, energy source by energy source and building by building. And that's what I'll do next. We'll take a look at the public works facility. This is that one that's our most recent building at 0.38 of the benchmark value. Now, keep in mind, all of this data is normalized year over year for weather. So if we have a hot year in the summer and we have a lot more cooling degree days, or if we have a really cold winter and a lot of heating degree days, it'll be able to compare one year versus the next, and it normalizes that data. It's also normalized. I've normalized it per square foot so that we can start to compare one facility to the next. Remember, that's not always a very fair comparison because a liquor store has a lot of electrical energy needs for cooling, or same with Braemar Ice Arena for making ice. But it starts to give you a sense of the relative values here. The Public Works facility, it has a geothermal system. It skews its total energy use towards electric, but it still does have makeup gas in the winters, and you can see the bumps there. That's when we start to kick on winter heat. You'll notice on the electric graph, it kind of has two bumps. It does a little bit of heating in the winter with electric, but it also does a lot of cooling in the summer. So, but a lesser total BTUs per square foot. So this one peaks out in the summer, of course. This one has a modern day command system where, you know, our HVAC and electrical people, they work out of this building. It's their pride and joy, and you know, they can spend time to make sure that it's you know, functioning at its best. And you won't see data like this with such small energy use in the rest of our system. The next one we'll go on is the second largest building. This is Braemar Arena, a very energy-hungry building, but for its age, I'd say it's doing pretty darn good. If we were to build it today to code, that's 1.02 benchmark. It's functioning like a brand new building met to code, but it was a 1960s era building, and it's been added onto a variety of times and remodeled a variety of times. And this was one of the larger facilities in our Guaranteed Energy Savings Program where we put some money into retrofitting. You can see that very subtle dotted line there that hovers above the red after about May of 2010. We've been doing a lot of retrofits on this building, and you can start to see the gap between what it's predicting from its baseline year and the actual energy usage. It's moderate, you know. In the last full year of record, 2011, it says it's down 7% use. So a modest gain, but a reduction nonetheless. And then the last one I'll drill down into is the third largest building, City Hall. This one is kind of a puzzle. It's a fairly new construction, 2005. It has comparatively high energy use compared to like facilities. Some things that this thing has going against it are it has a high need for reliable service, by evidence of the 400 kilowatt generator, 24-hour operations, and while this data is normalized for usage and how often we use it, we need to have it up and running. We've got a lot of computer servers on site. All of those things that, you know, we can't take out of the data are still in there, but we're still searching around for other opportunities. And I think in our last audit, we've already noted some. So this one might be one of those that's potential for a future retrofit or a future effort to reduce. And then speaking of, what is the opportunity for those future use? Those top 5 facilities making up, you know, well over, you know, 60 to 70% of the total usage. Obviously, those are going to be part of the solution if we were really going to get to that 15 or 30% carbon reduction, or if we wanted to take, you know, $100,000 or $200,000 off of the annual electric bill for the city. Some lessons learned. Just from that public works facility example, we're learning that initial building commissioning process is really important for setting the long-term energy use of a building, and we want to make sure that we're really focused on energy efficiency in that initial purchase decision. Short of that, in a retrofit decision, making sure that we've taken the right opportunities to tighten up the building, make the heat and cooling load much less, and then start to work on lighting and other uses in the facility. A lot of the lessons that we're learning that I didn't share here from the liquor stores are, and from Braemar Arena, the users in that building and the building managers have a lot of say on, you know, how much energy the facilities use, and making sure that we have good training for the technical staff and for the building managers is going to be important because the users can start to drive down that use as well. And then just providing, you know, continual feedback so that we know, you know, we're measuring this and we're trying to reduce it. So that's all I had for you, and I guess you can take questions if we have time.
Ross, why is the ratio so high at Borough and the Senior Center? I was expecting the Golf Dome to have the highest ratio.
So looking at the Golf Dome, I guess for peer facilities, they are high energy use buildings. So it benchmarks it against other like facilities. The Golf Dome is kind of interesting too, where it has a high benchmark ratio, and it's a poor performing facility. It also had fairly low CO2 in dollars compared to another facility that was using as much total BTUs. Look at City Hall just above it, almost identical total energy use in BTUs. The mix, though, for the Golf Dome was almost all gas heating, and gas heating has a lot lesser cost right now, and it has a less carbon cost as well. So just comparing those two on this graph, you can kind of see not all buildings are made the same.
Ross, what is the BM ratio again?
That's the benchmark ratio. So
is that energy use or is that carbon emissions?
That is energy use in 1,000 BTUs, and we compare it against other facilities that are in this database.
Thank you.
As I sit here in this room with this very tall ceiling, I can't help but wonder, we measure in terms of square footage and how much energy is used, but is there any movement to do cubed?
Yeah, I would have to ask the folks who they're making improvements to this B3 system at all times, and right now the users have the control to be able to describe the use types and the building types, and then the square footage and the hours of operation, but nothing about, I've never seen a guess as to size. Mm-hmm. I think some of that would come out in the like building comparisons and the benchmark, but yeah, you're right.
Any other questions? Thanks very much, Ross. That was really very interesting and informative. And then our next topic, Edina was one of the first 3, 4, or 5 cities that also agreed to participate in this next project. You'll hear about the Urban Land Institute's Regional Indicators Project that Rick Carter from LHB really designed and has been growing from a few cities now to, I guess, a couple dozen. So, Rick, thanks for coming tonight, and we're looking forward to hearing about the Regional Indicators Project and kind of how we fit in and what kind of trends you see from Edina on our indicators.
Thank you very much. It's not really an answer to the last question to Ross, but it's sort of the beginning of this. The minute you get information, you want more information. And the B3 database and this regional indicators and the previous one, it's like drinking from a fire hose. So just sort of take it in right now. You're getting kind of a peek inside to not the middle, but towards the end of this phase of the project. And I'm going to go through this pretty fast for 2 reasons. One, I was asked to be about 20 minutes, so I'll shoot for that. And then 2, a lot of you have seen a lot of this before. So feel free to stop me. Otherwise, when we get to the end, I can always go back to something. So as Bill said, you were one of the first of 3, so thank you very much for that. Today we have, and it's kind of called out on the side, basically this is an inventory of total energy, water, travel, waste, and greenhouse gas emissions for 20 cities for 4 years. So it's the entire city. And you all know this, but you're one of the only cities I've ever found who's actually published citywide data. You have your 2007 energy data in your comprehensive plan. So I think I'll skip through some of this. I think most of you understand the relationship to green step cities. This really falls under the heading of, if you're going to manage this, you really need to be able to measure it. You can't just do the best management practices. We have continued to do research to look for other projects around the country and around the world, and it's safe to say we haven't found anything quite like this. Nothing where we've seen, as many as 10 or 20 cities collecting total data across this period of time. A number of cities have done like you did, done sort of a carbon benchmark at one point in time, but nothing quite this comprehensive. So these are the project goals, and we continue to develop them, but in addition to just collecting the data, which was really the original goal, we're trying to examine trends across cities, from within cities, from city to city. We're also now trying to figure out a way to use this information to forecast business as usual and try and establish targets so that people can use best management practices to manage the difference between the two. And one of our funding sources, the Department of Commerce, asked us to help develop tools to communicate this information publicly. So we're actually working right now on a website, and we're hoping by the end of February to launch a website where all this information will be accessible publicly, and you'd have the ability to go in and manipulate it and sort it yourselves. I'm not going to spend time on benefits to cities. You already figured that out. These are the 20 cities. Somebody pointed out on our staff just the other day that it represents 25% of the state's total population, which is pretty amazing because we have a lot of the larger cities. We would like to get some additional cities in this next phase. Actually, just to kind of skip ahead a little bit, we've just recently asked the Department of Commerce for a little bit of additional funding because we'd like to get 2012 data, and when you see some of the trends, you'll understand why. So we figure if we can get money to do the 2012 data, we'd like to try and add a few cities, and we'd specifically like to get some cities outside of the metro region besides Duluth and Rochester. So just a refresher for some and for others, new information. This is what we've gathered. So citywide for each year, total energy in BTUs, which is all energy. It's basically the same metric that Ross was using. Water in gallons, travel in miles. Waste is a little bit of an outlier because we don't measure waste by city. You all have some initiatives to do that, but for the most part, we measure waste by county in Minnesota. So we have the information in here for the carbon calculations, but it's really by city. We've gone to great lengths using the ICLEI protocol to put everything into carbon equivalents so that people who want to see it that way can see it. And we've also taken one crack at costs, and your city is the illustrator for all the slides, so you'll get to see real data for yourself. Most cities, I have to look them up and say, your numbers are so-and-so. We have the area for each city, and then because it's relatively easy to get, we also have the population data and the weather data for each year for each city as well. And I'll show you one example of weather normalized community data, just like Ross talked about for the buildings. So I use the map of your city to remind people this is everything inside the line, not just the city buildings. And then in terms of carbon, we actually are tracking two numbers. One is using the ICLEI protocol, includes the metrics we're tracking, which are energy, vehicle miles traveled, and waste, but a couple of other things like railroad travel, train travel, et cetera, we're not actually measuring in this project, but you can see they amount to a pretty small amount of the total. We actually do measure them just for the purpose of getting the carbon footprint. So now I'm going to go through pretty quick just a series of slides. This is really just a sort of a snapshot in time of what we're showing people are ways that this data could be used. You know, Ross was going through the B3 data. That's had a lot of time. It's sort of built on 30 years of looking at how you can look at energy in buildings, and this is relatively new concept of looking at energy in cities. So what do you normalize it over? Because we have for all 20 cities, the residential data and the water data separated, and we can count people and jobs. We've experimented a little bit with normalizing residential data per person and commercial industrial data per job. So this is the city of Edina residential usage over 4 years in kBTUs per person per day. So if someday that sounds to people like miles per gallon or kBTU per square foot per year, we're not sure, but it was a place to start. And you can see, just like on some of the slides Ross showed, we have gas separated from electricity. We have weather data at the bottom. And before I move off of this slide, I'm going to kind of point one thing out. That little curve that shows the downward trend from 8 to 10 and back up in 11 is pretty pervasive in the data. In every single city, in energy across the board, we're seeing a downward trend with a slight uptick in 11. which is why we really would like to see 12.
But
Yep.
is that normalized data or not normalized data?
This is normalized per person.
Per degree day or just person?
I'm going to show you degree day right now, okay? So keep your eye on the slide. This is not weather normalized, and that's weather normalized. So if Ross did the same thing with buildings, I guarantee you'd see the same effect. You'd see a dampening of extremities, but it would rarely change trends. So it's a factor, but think about the height of the bar compared to how much the bar changes. It's not that big of a factor. So this is just a little one-time experiment. We have the ability to do that across the board, even with water data because we have precipitation. Taking the other chunk of energy, the commercial industrial energy, and normalizing by jobs, we're not quite sure what that means yet. I mean, literally, we haven't seen anybody else do this. It's sort of like a city's gross domestic product, which you would often see national or international data proposed in. So we think we might have some way of using that to compare. Here's water. And, you know, that may seem high, but it's really, you'll see some city-to-city comparisons too. It's not unusual at all for a U.S. city to have residential water consumption at 100 gallons per person per day. So this is residential use. It's a large part of it, could be 30 to 40% is irrigation in any city. We didn't see as many trends similarly, and you'll see some bar charts where you see there's a little bit of that curve, but it's relatively flat, not quite as consistent as energy. And although we didn't weather normalize it, and I'm not going to take the time right now, there's not a direct correlation between the inches of rainfall and the water used. And probably the biggest reason for that is if you think about the way we get water through rainfall, it's not very consistent, especially lately. You know, we get big chunks of water in short periods of time. Water in terms of gallons per job per day, again, this data is so new to us, we're really just trying to see what it means. You'll see some comparisons from city to city. Our sense is, well, we know this for a fact, when we're looking at buildings and looking at the water use in buildings, and in fact, the B3 database will have a water component probably within a year, so you'll have this for your buildings. If somebody's going to work in a building sort of 9 to 5, they're probably going to use maybe 10 to 20 gallons per day because they're not taking showers, they're not cooking, etc. So most of the water used in the commercial industrial sector is processed water. It's being used to clean or pump or cool, etc. Travel is relatively flat across all cities across the 4 years. Not a big surprise. Probably some economic factors at play in all of this. Now this is, we haven't been able to figure out a way to figure out which miles are residential miles and which miles are commercial industrial. So this is total miles, all vehicles in the boundaries of your city. So this is carbon, and this is, I think I have a pie chart, or I may have had it early on. When you put energy the way we've done it, when we're getting energy from the utility companies, from district energy, we're putting it all in one part of the carbon pie. It is substantially the contributor to carbon. So in every case with every city, energy is about 60 to 75%. VMT makes up most of the rest, and a little bit of waste. As a little bit of an experiment, because a lot of people are really interested in what the cost element of this is, what's the monetization. This is taking just the retail cost of each thing we can measure. So it's literally what the cost of a therm is for you to buy at home or at work. It doesn't look like very much per person per day, but when you look at a city like Edina and you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, then when you talk about reductions, you're talking about some pretty serious money. This is really just to say that you all have, and I'm doing this for every city, mostly for the Environmental Commission, you all have a report, it probably went to Ross, that's about 40 or 50 pages long, that maybe has 10 or 12 pages of text, and the rest of it are spreadsheets that all roll up into this spreadsheet. So every piece of data that we have for you, you have. And if anybody wants to know how we rolled up to BTUs or how we rolled up to VMT. It's a very transparent process. That information probably won't go on the website. We'll probably sort of start at this platform, the numbers that we generated. So there's a source for every number. This is just a glimpse into the website. We're trying to make the website something that you would want to have a link to on your website so that you can share it with your businesses and your residents and people in the city. The idea is to make it not just interesting and fun, but interactive, try and demonstrate trends. The bar chart on the left is part of a survey that we did of all cities, and cities, it appears, generally communicate through print media and websites, so we've tried to focus on that in terms of getting the word out. We're also trying to figure out ways of doing this, again, graphically in a way. It's like the charts that Ross showed. I mean, you can look at spreadsheets all day long, and the minute someone shows you that same information in a chart and a bar like that one day with your solar, it jumps right off the page at you. So we're really trying to figure out a way to do this graphically. So now I'm going to go through a couple of slides that compare cities to cities. Comparing cities and cities is probably far more dangerous than comparing buildings to buildings, and that's a hard thing to do. So don't come at this saying, if I'm bar 5, which you are, who's bar 12? Because that's not the issue right now, okay? Using this data to compare yourself over time is the main thing. We want to be able to compare city to city and types of cities to look for trends and to illustrate ways of doing things differently. You are bar 5, and this is the total KBTU per person per day for 1 year in each of these cities. We actually have 20 cities. We're waiting for one more piece of data. There really isn't a lot of variation on this chart, quite frankly. You know, plus or minus 10% is probably the big difference. Looking at it through the commercial industrial lens, we're really not sure what this tells us right now. There may be really good reasons why a business is more energy intensive. But I will tell you that if you're coming at this from the standpoint of we want to lower the carbon footprint of the city of Edina, and I'm telling you that 67, 70% of your carbon footprint is coming from energy, and you'll see in a minute probably 60% of that is coming from commercial industrial energy. So understanding this data is important and trying to figure out a way to help the businesses use less energy. So this is every city. The big heavy black bar is the average, and we should have an exaggerated scale on here. They basically all follow this kind of hockey stick curve. Almost every city in total MBTUs follows that pattern of down, down, up. So we really want to know what's going to happen in 2012, or what happened. It's already over. We just need to get the data. Same when you normalize it per person. So here's that chart again. So this is across the entire set. You are in the second row from the top on the far left. So you're just slightly more commercial and industrial than residential, but for the most part, I think every city but maybe one or two are more commercial industrial than residential in their energy consumption, and this is in BTUs. Water, again, your city, you're number 5, so this is residential water in gallons per person per day. Maybe, to me, the obvious thing about this slide is there's a lot more variation. There's some understandable differences in the types of cities, the core cities where the smaller lots and the greater density, the irrigation is less. I point out Falcon Heights because they're not a central city. They obviously have some interesting land use with the U and the state fair, but there may be some clues to what you can do in a city to reduce water use. So this is a kind of place where, again, if you're comparing yourself to yourself over time and you institute something like irrigation regulations, you should see a difference in these numbers. You're number 5. You're actually the lowest water consumption per job of any city in the study. I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's even good or bad, but it's interesting. Probably because you have more commercial jobs than you have industrial jobs. Again, the water trends aren't quite as clear. Basically up down, up, but relatively flat, whether we look at it in total or per person per day. Did I do something? Huh. Let me see if I can get back to where I was. Is this mouse? There we go. I was close, but not quite through. Okay. Travel has a more maybe expected and definite pattern between the types of cities. So again, this is total miles within the city, even if the trip travels through your city. So it's clear that the outer ring suburbs have considerably more miles traveled than the core. This is, now again, we can't separate, so this is total VMT per capita. Similarly, yep. Yeah. I actually need to write up the elevator speech answer to that, but I will tell you just briefly, if you really want to know, you look in the data that I gave Ross, there is a page that shows each of the road types in your city, and it shows the frequency of the data measurement, and it shows the number of miles traveled. Basically what it amounts to is on heavily traveled roads like freeways and highways, there's constant counting using counters and video cameras. And if you look at, I bet that when you look at your city, 20% of the roads, 10 to 20% of the roads fit into that category, and 80 or 9% of the travel occurs on those roads. So as you get to the smaller roads where there's less counting, there's far fewer miles. So that's essentially it. Again, those patterns aren't quite as... So here's, which I would imagine, a pretty important comparison of city to city. So you're kind of in the middle there with bar 5, but again, it's very measurable, and we're talking about whether there would be too much information on this slide if we saw all 4 years for all 20 cities. We're trying to figure out ways to show as much information as possible. Finally, where we'd like to be able to go is we know that you and at least 18 of the cities do comprehensive plans every 10 years, project your growth in population, households, and jobs. And I've actually read all 18 of those comprehensive plans, including yours, so I can tell you nobody's projecting downward trends in population, jobs, or households. So if everything's projected to go up, and we have a baseline of this data, and we know that really what we're trying to do is hit this downward trajectory. For example, the state has a statute for 80% reduction of carbon from 2005 to 2050. If business as usual today is more of a straight line, what do we need to do to get on that downward trend, and how can you track it over time? So we did evaluate all the BMPs, generally speaking, in the Green Step cities. About 18 of the 28 have a specific thing that if you do it, it would have an impact on this data. We're trying to drill down deeper. We may actually ask you to be one of a few cities where we drill in even deeper to look at the actions that you're doing specifically and try and compare them to the data over time. So where we're at today is we know we can measure the data. We can normalize by some interesting things, including household, which I didn't show you, but we can do that. Energy is the largest part of the carbon pie. Commercial industrial energy is the largest part of the energy pie. Residential, I think I skipped over this one. Residential is actually greater on the residential side. And where we want to go from here is to really inform the comprehensive planning process that's about to begin in the next couple of years, try and get the 2012 data now so we have a 5-year baseline, add a few cities, and really focus on ways, cities who haven't chosen their BMPs yet, we would think this would be the kind of thing you'd look at first, so you decide which BMPs. And for cities who have, as you make progress over time, you want to be able to look back and hopefully make a difference. But this is a long trajectory project. So that's my presentation for tonight. You're welcome. Any questions?
Any questions or more questions? Commissioner Latham?
We will very shortly have our trash data. We have just a few haulers left to get it from. When you do our 2012 data, will you use our actual trash data as opposed to extrapolating it from Hennepin County?
I'll tell you what I would like to do is for every city that has any specific trash data is to put it in the system. And, you know, whether it's one or if one had total or several had residential, we'd use it any way we can. So we'd like to get it.
All right, we'll be sure to get that to you because we'll have, of course, both our recycling and our trash data.
Yeah, so you might be the only one, but that'll be good still.
No, a couple of cities have asked for our reporting form, and I think it's spreading.
Good. Well, and Maplewood, and some of you may know, just became the first city to do a single hauler in maybe 20 years, so they're in our plan. The other thing I forgot to mention, along the way to getting the 20 cities, except for the very tip of the Hiawatha line, every city that's on every one of the current 3 light rail lines that are either built or in planning are in the study. So to have this information as a baseline as those lines come on and develop over the years would be very helpful. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks very much. So Ross, our next update, Philip Musig, who's the State Green Step Coordinator, had something come up at the last minute today and could not make it. So he gave me a few kind of update slides, which I'd like to go through just so if the public is interested, this will explain where you can find more information about the Green Step City program and kind of how Edina is, what our current status is. And I also talked to Philip this afternoon, and I invited him to come to either one of our next 2 meetings to talk to us, particularly because we are a Step 3 city, which I'll explain in a minute, but they are planning to do steps beyond that, up to 4, 5, and 6. And it'll be a good discussion with him to talk about what it would take for Edina to continue being a leader in the Green Step City program and kind of exchange ideas with him on how we can really integrate what we've done already and what the next steps are that he's thinking of taking. So basically, the Minnesota Green Step City program, as this slide says, it's free, it's voluntary. It is meant to be a continuous challenge, so cities continue taking actions progressively. We started out as a Step 1 to Step 2 to Step 3 city, which right now is the highest level. There is a recognition program for taking more actions because in reaching Step 3, we take more actions, and they're also kind of more complex as they go. And we were one of the first pilot cities. There were 5 original pilot cities to kind of test drive the Green Step City practices. Edina applied and was accepted to the program. So we have been there since it began. As of today, and just as of this month, there are now 50 cities. Maple Grove was the latest to join in a few weeks ago. Those 50 cities, including Edina, include 20% of the state's population. So it's not only kind of geographically diverse, but it's also a very good cross-section of the Minnesota population. So this is basically a homepage. If you go to the Minnesota Green Step City website, which the previous slide said was www.mingreenstep.org, that will take you to a page that basically gives you several different links to go to. And there are, basically the core of the Green Step City program is 28 best practices that are grouped in 5 different sectors that are shown on this slide. So basically building and lighting has several different headings, and there are a number of best practices and then actions, a number of actions in each of those best practices. And similarly, land use is another major category. Transportation, environmental management, including purchasing and other things that you've heard about, and then economic and community development. The program basically was set up by a direction from the legislature in 2009, and it's the major partners that are supporting the program are listed at the bottom of that slide. There are state partners, including the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and the Department of Commerce. There are local partners, including the 50 cities as well as the League of Minnesota Cities. There's some nonprofit groups that support it, including the Urban Land Institute, which you also heard has supported the Regional Indicators project that Rick Carter talked about, the Great Plains Institute, and the Clean Energy Resource Teams, which also helped us establish our building benchmarking system. So if you click on any of those categories, they will take you to different best practices that are options, and the city will then look at what those different best practices are and voluntarily select the number and the areas that it is most interested and best situated to undertake. So we are currently, and I think the next slide might show that, there's a home page for the city of Edina. So when you're at the original page that shows you the 50 Green Step cities, you can click on Edina, and then our own home page will come up, and it will tell you kind of what our status is. And as it is indicated here, we are one of only 4 of the cities that is a Step 3 city, which currently is the highest level that you can maintain. And the city staff, if you click at the very bottom, we have self-reported details. That won't go to any link here today, but you can go to the website. And then that will show you what we have done and what actions we've selected for our, well, what is qualified for us as Step 3 Green Step cities. Our report, annual report from last year, focused on reporting on a lot of those specific Green Step actions. So if you find the audio tape from last year, you can hear the update from 2011 as to where we were with all the Green Step actions that we had undertaken at that time. So basically, the takeaway points are that there are right now in those 50 cities, over 1,000 different actions are being taken by small and large cities across Minnesota. Edina itself, as a Step 3 city, has an impressive number of Green Step efforts that are underway, many of those because of the efforts of the Energy and Environment Commission and the different working groups that the commissioners and citizens of Edina have supported. The Green Step city partners that I showed you are developing further additional steps. Right now they're looking at steps 4, 5, and 6, and they will involve also a little bit more intensive use of metrics, such as what Rick Carter talked about, so that we can track better what the impact of these Green Step City actions is at the community level. And one reason to have Philip Music come in, too, is also to give him some feedback from the commission as to their ideas on steps 4, 5, and 6 and what we think would be workable for us and where we would like to have some assistance from the Green Step City program. So key future work that Phil Music recommended is it's going to involve more interaction with kind of the core decision-making processes of the city that we've already begun to focus on, including like city planning, budgeting, capital expenditure plans, and working more closely with businesses and citizens and continued outreach. So that's, in an overview, what Phil Music would have said if he was here, but probably in more detail. And like I said, hopefully we can get him to come in either February or March to talk about more detail. So if there's any questions about that that I'm able to answer, I'd be happy to do so. And otherwise, we'll have a little more time, I think, for the report from Ross about the City Council's actions on our priority plan and kind of where we will go from there. So I'll give us more time to talk about that right now, which I think will be really good.
I just want to thank Bill for actually being the person who got us into Green Step Cities. Without you here, Bill, we wouldn't have been put on to that, and it's been just a tremendous program. It enabled us to really focus and get things done as we could not have done otherwise. So thank you, Bill, and thank you, MPCA, for all the work putting this program together. It's been just tremendous.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I'm very happy with how the partnership has gone so far, and hopefully more good things in the future. So our next item, I don't think we have any correspondence or petitions, so we can go to the chair and commission member comments. And in particular, I think we have the 2013 EEC work plan that the City Council did review and Ross has obtained their feedback. So, Ross, if you'd like to go over what the City Council did and recommended that we do with our work for the next year, that'd be great.
Thank you, Chair. This is in much the same form that you saw it, with only some minor changes. There are 6 major elements on the EEC's work plan for 2013. The first one is the comprehensive city building energy efficiency project, investigating some methods like our guaranteed energy savings program project that we've previously completed to find more savings in our buildings, and then propose a project for 2014. Another one that is a continuation and a growth of something that we did last year, energy efficiency community outreach and education project. I look forward to seeing which direction our energy outreach committee takes us next year. Promoting the Edina Emerald Energy Program. So far, no changes to council. The same format you've seen in our previous meetings when we proposed these. Integrating comprehensive plan chapter 10 into city operations, looking for those areas in city ordinance, and the key points in implementation that we can affect change in the city to reduce energy use and increase environmental outcomes. Surface water quality policy exploration is another one. This is, as Julie mentioned, we did a lot of work on our wellhead protection plan and pollution prevention for the wellhead protection plan in 2012. The stormwater pollution prevention plan is up for review and change in 2013, and there's going to be a lot of work around that. I feel like I've missed one thing that was changed by council. Oh, pardon me. In the which item is that? Sorry. Yeah, promoting the Emerald Energy Program. The council added exploring potential applications to residential properties to what right now is just a business program for the Emerald Energy Program. And the last item, recycling license update. The council made 2 changes to this one. The 2 changes recommended were in italics there, and then at the final page under council comments, recommending ordinance language or programs related to commercial recycling, and then under the council comments, providing some carrot and stick approach for a commercial recycling program or license changes. So that's the brief summary, and I could take questions or you could discuss it amongst yourselves.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. The one thing I'd like to add would be a pitch for residential pace in the next meeting or 2. And basically what I would like the commission to consider is if we do some background work with the city staff and the city manager to find out what potential risks there may be that we can address by expanding the residential pace. The opportunities I think it gives us that I really would like to take advantage of if we can are that there have been 2 articles in the last month, one in the About Town and then the Dyna magazine, about the commercial pace projects that happened. And what that really struck for me when I read those is that there are very few, actually rare opportunities for a city to actually lead in an area that basically very few or no other cities have done in the Midwest, which we did in commercial pace. And I think the opportunity, if you can get into the leadership role again with residential, is that it generates a lot of opportunities for getting the message out, not just about pace, but particularly with residents about energy efficiency and solar residential. So it's a way to attack carbon. It's a way to promote energy, clean energy, and it kind of really supports the housing stock. You have to make your building more energy efficient, which is only going to raise values of properties in Edina. So I think the opportunity to get outreach, not just on financing, but on really positive messages we're trying to send is there. And if we can have some kind of program that we're comfortable with by April, and we can roll that out as part of our forum, I think that, again, would be a really nice tie-in, because we're talking about a pretty significant climate message to the community and giving them something they can actually take to. We could have not only PACE, but a definite kind of promotion of here's opportunities for you to make a difference, reducing your climate or carbon footprint. And PACE would be just one aspect of doing that. So I will commit to trying to work with Ross and Scott and seeing what concerns they have, maybe report back to us in February, and see if we can at least start moving something forward to recommend to council on that one. And then, I don't know, Sarah, do you want to comment at all? I thought it was really encouraging.
Bill,
that.
Can
Oh,
I
sorry.
make one
On
comment?
that,
on
yeah, before we move on, yes.
Yeah.
Sarah.
I guess I'd also like to hear from City Legal Counsel on the
Okay,
PACE program.
sure.
What's their opinion?
Okay, and then, yeah, the only other, I think, encouraging thing is basically, as I understand it, council basically okayed all of our priorities that we worked on and developed in the fall, and with just two supplemental requests, and one was residential PACE and the other was commercial recycling. So as long as we're on the televised record, do you want to go into a little more detail about what the plans are to, because we were talking about the opportunity already, and there's a good program that we're ready to work on again. So just
Thank you. It is very encouraging, and so far the plan is to have task force meetings, and we are meeting every month, once a month, on third Wednesday of each month, 3:30 at the Chamber of Commerce. And so we have representatives, chamber president, myself, volunteers from the couple of volunteers, and city so far, representative from the city. And we would like to get a couple of businesses. One is, for example, 50th and France, because they are small businesses. Representative from small businesses, multi-unit buildings, and some other businesses, small and large, and also businesses that are doing good recycling. And also there was recommendation to get one from the grocery stores in Edina. So it is, first it's going to start with collecting information, what businesses are recycling, what the task force is going to recommend, and also, Hennepin County is collaborating with us 100%. They have resources and money. Apparently, they have some budget to put in this. And we are going to be the first city as a pilot run to do education and promotion to see where does it go. And and also to my surprise, when I had this meeting, at first meeting, it seems lots of buildings, they don't do recycling. And it is up to the landlords for the recycling, and most of the buildings, they don't do it. And one example is United States, we do consume water bottle that it goes around 4 times around the earth. So those are lots of bottles. If we don't recycle those, where are we going to put them? So it is mostly education to let the people know. And also, it is going to be beneficial for businesses, cost saving in some aspect like paper, aluminum, and also it is good for city and the environment. So we are informing the task force. I will report every month to the EEC and the outcome of it. And I think also we would like to utilize websites at the Chamber of Commerce and the city. We really need to update the city's website to be able to tell the businesses, go there and utilize. Lots of information is going to be on the city website.
Great. Any other comments from commissioners?
Ross, did council give a reason why they removed the Urban Forest Task Force? That was something they had approved the year before last, and urban forestry was ranked by EEC as one of its highest objectives. Was there any reason? There's not much staff time that's involved in that one, I don't think. What was the problem, do you suppose?
I can only go from the council comments. They essentially say that due to the other priorities that they're going to defer this one to a future year. I guess the new one that they added, commercial recycling.
but they are mutually exclusive. It's different people who are working on the two, both staff and volunteer. So one doesn't really replace the other in terms of resources.
I wasn't in the room at the time, so I don't have any further information.
Maybe we can talk about that more, and because I think one of the agenda items we probably want to talk about in February is, given what the priorities are, do we have room for other activities, and then among the different working groups, and are we structured appropriately to get the work done that we want to do? So I think we can talk about, do we have the capacity to take that on and still meet the other priorities that we've gotten? And maybe one thing I wanted to raise at this point, too, is, Ross, are you the right person to ask? We should get a date for our working group meeting for this year with City Council, because apparently I don't know how far out they're booking, but February for sure is busy. So if you can check into a date and let us know so we can put it on our calendars, and we'll develop an agenda for that.
And possibly at that time, if we decide that we have the resources to do Urban Forest Task Force, then we could talk to council at that time about that.
Mm-hmm. So the last item on the agenda would be staff comments. So Ross, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to bring up at this point. Oh, and there is one update, Commissioner Latham, if you want to talk about the community garden update at this time, that'd be great.
At the Park Board meeting Tuesday night, they decided to form a task force on community gardening, and they are proposing a garden at the Yorktown Park next to the Y, and they need some standards by which to manage this garden, and the task force would be working on that. I did volunteer to be on that task force, and Ross asked our entire commission if anybody else was interested. Nobody indicated that, unless you speak up now. I don't know if we have to confirm an appointment, Bill.
Well, I actually thought you were the perfect person if anybody here was going to be on that, so I'm really happy you volunteered. But sure, do we want to have a motion to approve and actually thank Commissioner Latham for volunteering and approving?
I'd also like to volunteer. I just didn't communicate with you. And we're planning a community garden in Morningside, so we can maybe talk about that.
Great. So can we have a motion to approve Commissioner Latham and Commissioner Thompson as members of the Community Garden Task Force?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you both for volunteering. That's going to be a great effort. Okay, is there anything else on that anyone wants to bring up? Otherwise, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned at 8:45.